Well, many of you have asked me specifically for this video, so here it is. This is the Robert's Guitar Dungeon Studio Tour 2020 COVID-19 Quarantine Edition. Come on, let me show you around. There we go. Let's start over here, shall we? Oh boy, let's see. Let's start here with that guitar. That guitar itself really isn't anything. It isn't really anything special. Just a inexpensive Epiphone acoustic. However, that guitar actually belongs to my wife. And no, my wife is not a guitar player, but that guitar was a gift to her from her father many years ago when she was still a little girl. He had bought it for in hopes that she might express an interest in wanting to play the guitar, wanting to learn. She never did. She was already musical, because she's been a singer all her life, and she's played around with the piano a little bit, but she never really took the guitar, but she always hung on to it. And of course, at that time, who knew that she was going to wind up marrying a guitar player? So I have now kind of taken that on, and it is kind of sort of part of my collection, but I've also kind of taken it on as my personal responsibility to care for it. So that's what that is. And of course, that is her piano under that cover. Is just a Casio CDP 100. Let's see, down here, that is a I know this right now just kind of looks like I'm going through a bunch of junk on the floor, but which I guess at the moment is really what I'm doing. But that is a Boss PS8, I'm sorry, an SKB PS8 powered pedal board that I bought about a year or so ago for something and ended up never using it. I actually just listed that for sale the other day because it's not doing anything and I don't need it. On-stage vocal shield, a couple of 50-foot mic cables. I plan on using those to, for when I actually want to record an amp into my DAW, which is on my desk out, probably about 50 feet away from where I'm currently standing, which is by my amps. Let's see here. These are the Boss, what I call the Smorgasbord series pedals that most people are probably pretty familiar with by now. They've been out for a while. I've demoed every one of these on my channel. This is where they live. On that handy dandy shelf there from IKEA. That shelf is called the Mosslanda shelf. If you are looking for a way to store pedals, that is a very efficient and affordable way to do so. Let's see here. That is my primary camera, actually. That is my Nikon D3300 DSLR camera. That the vast majority of the videos, particularly the primary camera angle, have been shot with that camera. That's a Zome camera stand tripod, heavy duty tripod that it's on. That's been a real good camera. I want to upgrade the lens on it here at some point. I keep meaning to do that. I just haven't made it a priority. Let's see, that bookshelf, that's a bookshelf with a bunch of old tablature books that honestly I haven't really used any of that stuff in a long time. With as much information as there is available on the internet today, it's just a lot easier to look stuff up that way. However, one thing that is significant, those 3 binders there in the bottom left of this bookshelf, those are all of the handwritten tabs that my guitar teacher Vincent wrote out for me when I was taking lessons from him for several years. And I have learned more from those handwritten tabs that he wrote out for me than I have the rest of that bookshelf combined. So, and he and I became very, very good friends from our relationship when he was teaching me to play lead guitar, and we're still good friends today, and they're important to me. That's an original That's a original copy, vinyl copy of Michael Jackson's Thriller. I've actually got two of those. I'll show you the other one here a little bit later on. Let's see, back over here, that is an acoustic AG60, solid little affordable acoustic amplifier. Honestly, doesn't get used very much, but you know, when I want to plug into an amp, that's what that's there for. When I want to plug an acoustic into an amp, that is. Speaking of acoustic amplifiers, that is a B450. That is the lone bass amp that I own. A great little amp that is currently mic'd up with a Solomon Microphones Low Freak, which is really a mic designed for a kick drum, but also works real well for bass. And that other microphone there is a Blue Microphones Encore 100i, which is their $100-ish instrument microphone. You know, they're equivalent to the SM57, except that thing sounds way better than a 57 does. And I like the 57, but that one sounds a lot better than an SM57, and I think it's actually about $10 cheaper. So if you're looking for a good SM57 alternative, that is one that I suggest that you check out. And of course, that's my bass pedal board that's in that bag right there, and you know, a couple of attenuation devices on top of it. The PV6505 Plus combo. As much as I like that amp, I really don't use as much as I should. Maybe I'll make it a point this year to start using it more. Even though there's something wrong with the clean channel, as in that the clean channel on that, that amp's not known to be very clean, but the rhythm channel rather is a lot less clean than it should be. So there's something wrong with it, and I've just never messed around fixing it. Of course, there's some various collection of some microphones and mic clips and some other junk. You'll probably notice a recurring theme in this video that amps for me also kind of tend to double S collect-alls. For other things that I don't know where to store them. Such as this shelf right here. This is my, call it a junk shelf if you want. Believe it or not, I actually know where everything is on it. That's my parts shelf where I keep tools and cleaning materials and, things like that. There's a couple of stray pedals sitting on there. There's a Yamaha MG10XU mixer there on top, along with a couple of condenser mics. That mixer is another thing that was purchased for a specific project, specific use a couple years ago that it didn't end up working for, but I decided I'd go ahead and hang on to it because it was inexpensive enough, and it never hurts to have a small mixer laying around in case you need it for its traditional use. There is another pedal shelf. That's where I keep, that's my expression pedal shelf. I actually own more expression pedals than just those four. That just happen to be what fit on it, so I call it my expression pedal shelf. And if you look closely back behind there, you might see a certain slide whistle that made an appearance on my channel not too long ago. Let's see. There is my famous Kiss 3D poster. I bought that. Guitar Center was selling those here probably about 10 years or so ago, and I bought that when I was at the store. And me being such a diehard Kiss fan, I had to have it, and I still have it. These guys are Kiss original action figures, the complete set, in the box, in the package still, from the Psycho Circus era, I believe. I've had those since I was a teenager. Also in my possession since I was a teenager is that Pantera poster from the Far Beyond Driven tour. There is a Rush poster from the 30th anniversary tour, another tour that I was fortunate enough to attend, which is where that poster came from. And last but not least, of course, a tour that I didn't get to attend, unfortunately, but I have had it this long. That is the Megadeth Rust in Peace era poster, and that's another one that I've had since, I've had that one since probably before I was a teenager. Guitar wall number one. And I'm not going to go through each and every single one of my guitars. I probably won't go through any of them, to be honest with you, because I have an entire video on my channel dedicated to that from about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. That surprisingly, I'm actually shocked at how how popular that video is, and still gets views every now and again, even over 1.5 years later. That video goes through every guitar that I owned at that time anyway. There's been a couple of additions, but for the most part still pretty accurate. So if you want to see more about my guitars, go check out that video. But this is where most of them hang. And of course you have some more pedal storage up underneath and behind there. And the Panama amplifiers. This is 2 of the 4 that I own. The top one here, that is a Shaman. That's a Shaman 20. That is the one that actually turned me on to Panama guitars and their amplifiers. And yeah, pretty cool. It's a small little amp that does a lot. And then this guy is the 5-watt. That is that one's honestly probably my favorite of the 4 that I own. That one does quite a bit. Check out that video. I'm still impressed with it. That's another one of those things I need to get around to playing more. And I also did a video specifically on that cabinet, which is called the Prometheus cabinet. That thing is a 412. Okay, this section here is a part of this room that I just spent the last couple of weeks overhauling, because this whole setup here was over here, and those amps were over here, which you probably have seen in the background of some of my videos. But I wanted to move this over here because I wanted to get rid of that mic stand that I had in here and free up some floor space, and I wanted to go to this broadcast style boom arm with the microphone here on the end of it, and I haven't had a chance to use that yet, but if it works out the way that I think it's going to, that will be a big help. And like I said, it's really going to free up some space in here. So, and then of course you got a couple of pedal boards still hanging around. I don't really use pedal boards too much anymore. 99% of what I do these days is all on YouTube, and for most of that stuff it's really easy. It's just to grab the few pedals that I need, set them up on the floor, plug them in, do what I got to do with them, and then unplug them and put them away. So you'll notice both of these boards, particularly the one on the back, have had some pedals kind of plucked off of them as needed and never replaced, and that's because it just doesn't make sense to put them back on there. So truth is, all the pedals on both of these that are still on both of these boards haven't been used in a while. My trusty old Marshall JCM 900 dual reverb. Love this amplifier. Always wanted one of these. This one's a 1990, the first year that they came out. That year, and for about the first year and a half, maybe 2 years that they made that amp, they actually made these with, they were still putting EL34s in them. They had not they hadn't started putting 5881s in them until a little bit later on. So this is actually one of the earlier, harder to find EL34 versions. And next to that, of course, you have my Randall heads. That's the RM22 module head there on top, and my trusty Diavolo RD120 on the bottom, and the Seismic Audio 212 cabinet. That cabinet is killer. I bought that from a friend of mine, my friend Jacob Harrison, actually, who is now has his own guitar building company, I think, called Jacob Harrison Guitars. I'll post a link to it down in the description because he's a great guy. But he had this cabinet, and he's more of a Fender, blues type of player. When he sold this thing to me, when he first sold it to me, I had a couple of old Fender, I don't even remember what the speakers were, but there were some old Fender vintage speakers out of a 60s something or other. They were just way too bright for my taste. I absolutely see why he liked them, but for me, they didn't match up real well. So I pulled them out of there and sold them and replaced them with a pair of warehouse guitar speakers, veteran 30s, and now that cabinet rips the way that I want it to, and it's a great studio cabinet. I've played a couple of gigs with it, and it sounds great for that too, but it's big and bulky. It's just the biggest 212 cabinet I've ever seen. It's not really easy to move around. And this is the other half of the Panama gear that I own. Of course, that is their Tonewood 212 cab. That is the Fuego X on the bottom, and the Fuego Hot Rod on the top. I actually did a video comparing the two of those, and they do sound different. So of course, you got an old rack case. It's got a few pieces of gear in it still, and in front of that, you got a pile of vintage guitar magazine. I never was a subscriber, and some Guitar World magazines as well. The Guitar World magazines, I was a subscriber to that magazine for a long time. The vintage guitar magazine I never was. My mom ran across somebody that had a pile of them, and somehow she got a hold of them and gave them to me, and you know, now I've got a pile of magazines here that I don't and won't read. So if anybody wants them, let me know and I'll send them to you. I got some more pedals back there, and then another shelf there above it. That, of course, you see the Ogre pedals on there, which are, you know, kind of cool, and actually good pedals. It's just you know, the look of them is a little bit gimmicky. Some spare foot switches, and of course an original copy of Robert Plant's Now and Zen record, which is a great rock record from the 80s. And of course the other guitar wall. And you guys have seen most of these. These are the ones that are pretty visible in the background of my video, so I think most of you guys have seen them. That's a string shelf that Tony Ramsey gave me. Tony used to own his own shop over in the side of town that he lives in, and when he closed it down, he had a couple of those racks left over, and he gave a couple of them to me. That one's full. The other one actually I still have laying around, and haven't figured out where to find room to hang it on the wall yet, because I've got enough strings I could probably fill that one up too at this point. So okay, I think most guitar players have a place that they like to set up and restring and, you know, tweak and work on and repair their guitars and stuff. This happens to be mine. Just happens to be in front of my couch, or on my coffee table, in front of my couch, in front of my TV. This area, that is my primary studio light, and I use that for really for just about all my videos. Matter of fact, let me just turn that on. And it'll make it much easier for us to see everything else that I'm going to show you. See, that is a sidecar that goes with the studio desk. You know, you'll probably notice that little module stand there on top of it. That's what I use for most of my pedal demos these days, at least to set them on. Right now it's got the Digitech Lux in it because both of those cables are coming out of the effects loop of the IRT Studio, and it's actually really difficult to get back there and unplug them and plug them back in and out, all that stuff. So I'd rather just leave them plugged in for when I need them. And I figure if there is a pedal good enough that I am probably going to leave in there all the time anyway, it might as well be my favorite chorus pedal. And that's what I do. I just unplug it as necessary. So onto the rack itself. Nothing too crazy here. That is a Monster Power 2500, or Monster Pro 2500 power conditioner, which unfortunately is not made anymore because Monster cable's not around anymore. The Laney IRT Studio, which I did a video on. Of course, that is this thing's pretty cool. This was the best 40 bucks I ever spent at one time, because this is a little mini fridge, and I think I paid 40 bucks for that thing on eBay, and at the time that I bought it, it was for my desk to keep it worked for the company I was working for at the time. And you know, the company I work for now doesn't allow mini coolers on the desks, so now it is part of my home studio, and usually keep a few soft drinks and, you know, in there, and bottles of water and stuff like that. A couple of rack mount drawers. These guys here, you know, that's just some personal stuff. This desk isn't just my studio desk; it's my everything desk. Bottom drawer has just got some random, you know, some spare short cables of various different kinds. You know, those, you know, cables that you don't quite know what to do with, but you don't want to get rid of them. Some cable straps, and, you know, just various, you know, knickknacks and stuff. That one's special, and the reason why it is special is because on the night that I asked my wife to marry me, I did so at a friend's band's gig. On their stage, they invited me up, and I played a couple of songs with them, and then we invited her up to, you know, kind of make her think we were going to make her sing, which had her freaking out. And when she got up there, of course, I set the guitar down, and I pulled the ring out of my pocket, and I asked her if she would do the honor of being my wife. And that sign right there is the gift that the band gave us as an engagement gift. So that's why that is there above my desk. Couple more pedal shelves. You guys have seen a few of these at this point now. Of course, a lot of these pedals probably look familiar if you follow my channel, because those are all, for the most part, those are pedals that I've demoed or used in some capacity here recently. A pair of Cali Audio KP6, or I'm sorry, LP6 studio monitors. This side here, well, let's start with that side. That's just that's a live wire power conditioner and another live wire power conditioner over here. That is a Korg pitch black rack mount tuner underneath it. And then the brains behind the operation is that interface that you see right there, which is a Focusrite. That's a Focusrite 18i20 rack mount interface. And you might be asking yourself why a guitar player with a home studio primarily used for recording guitar needs an 18 input interface. And you know, the truth is it actually saves me a lot of time, because prior to that I was using that 2i2 that you see sitting right there, which was a good interface and certainly did the job, but you know, because of only having 2 inputs on it, I was constantly having to stop and reconfigure and rerun cables and all kinds of stuff. And you know, as you see, some of my vaping stuff there on my desk and my hand sanitizer. Again, this is the COVID-19 quarantine edition of this video, but the 18i20 has given me plenty of flexibility to where now I can keep that amp plugged into it all the time. I can keep that, you know, the 2 notes captor plugged into it all the time. That way, if I want to pull, you know, say one of the Panama amps out of the dungeon and run it direct without a speaker cabinet and record through that, I can do that. And that can stay plugged in all the time. That DI box that I use to record my bass can stay plugged in all the time. And I have, also that microphone right there, which is an EV-ND96 dynamic microphone, that gets to stay plugged in all the time. And of course, I'm still able to have 2 inputs, very easy for me to access there on the front in case, you know, for any oddball applications, etc., etc. And yeah, it's just convenient, easy for me to use. Of course, that is my coffee that I'm going to enjoy here in just a few minutes. That's where I hang some extra cables. You guys have seen most of the stuff in the background here before. You know, I keep a guitar stand here behind me, you know, for swapping stuff out, you know, as I'm recording. That is another copy of Michael Jackson's original. That's an original copy of Thriller that is in that frame, and that was the very first album that I ever owned. And I've been a huge Michael Jackson fan my entire life. And you know, people called me Michael Jackson growing up all the time because obviously we share a last name. But you know, I've always been a huge fan of Michael Jackson. So that is my Charvel 3B. A few of you guys have actually asked me about that here recently. You know, which is, you know, I know there's a few bass players that watch this channel, but you know, not too many of you show much interest in it, but a few of you do. And last but not least, this is my brand new studio chair. I needed a new studio chair because the one that I was using, number one, that thing was almost 20 years old. Had a good life, but it was time to be replaced. So I see all the guys on YouTube using these handy dandy cool little gaming computer chairs, and you know, that's not really what attracted me to this one though. This one, what I needed, one thing that drove me nuts about the other one is the arms were stationary. I needed a chair that the arms can flip up so that I can comfortably play guitar and not have to lean forward. So I think I'm gonna do a video on that just cause. All right, so there you have it. Like I said, I know several of you had asked for this video for, I don't know about for a while, but I brought it up here a couple of months ago and you had all expressed an interest to it. I apologize, I'm just now getting around to it, but it's been a busy year so far. And now that we're all quarantined and forced to interact with each other via the internet, that is what we're doing. So Anyway, I hope this is obviously going to change. You know, some things that I'm using and the way that I'm doing some things is likely going to change over the years, and I will be more than happy to share another update video here down the road, maybe in another year or so. You know, whenever the time is right. So, in the meantime, please consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't already, and leave me a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed my 2020 studio tour. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon.